Hey guys, how's it going? I hope everyone's doing well. Guys, thank you so much for your time and support. Like always, guys, I really appreciate your time. Guys, I'm going to go ahead and go over a video with code about that Coach Red Pill has made, also known as Gonzalo Lira. And I know some of you guys might not like him because of what happened, over his thoughts over the Ukrainian war. Sorry, I'm a little out of breath, guys. I rushed into the car. But anyway, let's go ahead and hear what he has to say, and I'm going to go ahead and give my thoughts.
People shit on incels, involuntary celibates. They shit on them all the time, and it pisses me off to no end. It pisses me off to no end for the exact same reason that it pisses me off when, schoolyard bullies pick on the runt of the litter, It pisses me off because involuntary celibates are guys who are just not successful in the current deregulated sexual marketplace. It's not their fault. Just like it's not the fault of the runt of the class to be the smallest one there, it's not the fault of involuntary celibates to be at the bottom of the social sexual hierarchy. It's not their fault. No, it's not their fault. See, the current way we have organized...
Okay, guys, I just want to go ahead and stop there. Guys, it is very unfortunate that that incel. Most of the incels are good people, except there are very few minority in there that have that bash women, that have done awful acts of violence, and that's where you guys. I'm sorry about the buzzing noise, and that's where I draw the line. I say, okay, that's bad, But if you're an incel that doesn't bash women and lives a functioning life, and you try to be as good a person as you can. Hey, I wouldn't consider you such a bad person if you identify as an incel or black pill. The problem is, guys, I draw the line where you're just bashing women and seeking to get even. That's where I draw the line. But you guys, I don't think people should be making fun of incels or giving them a hard time because, nobody should be bullied. I mean, just because you're just not good with the ladies, I don't think that's something that they should be bashed on. But like I said, guys, you're probably thinking, oh, what a hypocrite. He's always bashing incels and black pill. Like I said, only the ones that are doing bad towards other and bashing women.
Mating strategies right now in our current society is that it's a free-for-all. In this free-for-all, this deregulated sexual marketplace, well, what happens is that all of the women want to be with the top 20% of the men. And the bottom 80% get essentially the leftovers. Now, the top 20 get to pick whomever they want to be with. And the middle 50, that is from the top 1% all the way to percentage number 70, roughly, they will wind up with somebody. But the bottom 20, 30%, they're not going to wind up with anyone. And the fact of the matter is, most of them have spent most of their lives without any contact with a woman.
You guys, it is BS. I mean, the way society is made up, I'll agree with incels. Hey, it is messed up, especially with social media. It's just adding fuel to the fire, where women want that top guy, and a lot of this Instagram fairy tale picture perfect lifestyle that some gullible women, not all women, some gullible women that are on social media thinking that it's reality when it's far from it, buy into that stuff. And sadly, there's a lot of those. Let's just be real.
They will die, many of them virgins. And it's a tragedy. It's a tragedy, and it shows the deficiencies of our society. The fact that there is a substantial number of men, decent men, good men, men who are filled with love and compassion, men who are hardworking and want to form a family and be with a woman and be happy and make her happy and do everything in his power to make that woman happy. It's a tragedy that our society is such that we have such men who will be with no one, who will die alone. It's a tragedy, and it's not the fault of these men. I call bullshit on a lot of nonsense from leftists who say that, the problems in our society are all, social constructs and crap like that. For the most part, I think that's all nonsense, and it's just bullshit, like I said. But in this case, it really is the fault of society. It really is a social construct that leaves these men, these good...
You guys, I'll be honest with you, there's a lot of good... I'm pretty sure you've heard of it. Bad things happening to good people. Why does this happen? Why does bad things happen to good people? And the truth is, there's a lot of good guys out there that have not had a fair shake in life. That, life has treated them badly. And it sucks, I wouldn't necessarily consider myself a good man, but I try to be. But you guys, it is unfair. I mean, let's just be honest. And society, can be just awful. I mean, you guys, it seems like, all these movies, right, that make virgins be bad people, that it's sad, it's pathetic. Like I mentioned, sex is glorified in all these movies, and it's just wrong, guys. It's wrong on so many levels. Hollywood is a moral sewer that just, on top of making bad movies, they also give a bad message to society, and gullible, stupid people buy it.
Men without a mate, these good men who will go through life alone, end up alone, and this is a tragedy. In my own case, I think that I can feel compassion for these men because I don't feel, and this is going to sound monstrously arrogant, but I don't mean it in an arrogant way, I don't feel that I am particularly close to that level of sexual failure. My own life and my own experience is such, and my ability to get women that I like and who are desirable is such that I never feel insecure. And see, I've noticed that, the people who feel most insecure and quote-unquote hate incels the most are usually the guys who are lower on the sexual totem pole. And this has always been the case with human beings. We're always most afraid of falling into the lower classes. See, the people who are aristocrats in anything, be it socially or be it insofar as money and be it in any quality, if you're at the top, you're not very worried about the very bottom. On the contrary, because since you're at the top, you can afford to feel compassion for the ones at the very bottom. And I think that that's what happens to me. And also, what's key is that in my own case, when I was young, I too was an involuntary celibate. Yeah, when I was young, I was a sexual failure. I was a disaster. My own nerves, my own insecurity.
Yeah, that's right, guys. I mean, all of us at the beginning, including myself, I mean, we just, as young men, we weren't very good at the beginning, all of us. Even Chad and Tyrone himself, Pookie and Ray Ray, they sucked at one point, guys. So we all start at the bottom.
Would get the best of me, and I was a failure with women. I mean, consistently. The few times I got laid, it was just luck. Really, it was just luck. I mean, it wasn't because I was such a smooth character. No, I was not a smooth customer at all. I was a little spurg. I was just an annoying little spurg, yeah? But then over the years, because of these few initial successes, and also because I started paying attention to myself in the sense of observing myself and observing my interactions with women, I started to get better with girls. And eventually, I got to a point where I'm fairly successful with women and I don't worry about it. I'm not insecure about it. I never think that I'm going to fall into involuntary celibacy, right? But the guys who are afraid, those are the guys who shit on incels nonstop, and they dismiss them, and
he made a good point, guys. You eventually you're going to be successful. They're going to reach that point where, you're going to fail, and then you're going to start having successes. And even after those successes, guys, you're still going to have failures too afterwards. I mean, you're going to win some and lose some, and that's just the way it is, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's just the way it is.
They call them nasty names, and they even go so far as, the insanity of it, to say that incels are a potential terrorist group, which is fucking crazy. Incels are not a potential terrorist group. They are not. They are men who are alone. And this is actually more dangerous than a terrorist group. Because you see, a terrorist group actually believes in something. It doesn't matter what it is, and it could be incredibly stupid, but they believe in something. But incels are different. Incels are alone. They have no hope. And that's why so many of them have become violent and have done violent things, because they are alone and they feel hopeless, and they believe that they will always be alone. You see, a terrorist believes in his...
before he goes into the terrorist analogy a little bit more, guys, it's completely normal to feel alone and just down. I mean, and feel hopeless. It's normal. And sorry about the buzzing noise, guys. Again, so it's normal to feel that way. I mean, and he's gonna go into an analogy which I want to get into, which is pretty interesting. But yeah, I mean, it's a feeling of hopelessness. It doesn't necessarily mean you're a bad person, and you can't just write off this person's celibate. It means this, like I mentioned, guys, you can't jump to conclusions. I mean, these awful incels that have done these awful things, not just like I mentioned, it's a minority. But anyway, let's go ahead and keep going.
Ideology, whatsoever that ideology may be. And he has hope that one day that ideology will reign supreme. One day, his camp will win. One day, his communist paradise will arrive on this earth. Allah will come down and everything will be wonderful in the world. I mean, you see my point. They have a vision of paradise, these terrorists. It doesn't matter if you and I think that it's ridiculous and foolish. The terrorist believes this, right? And so because of it, he acts with hope in his heart. He might do horrifying things. I am certainly not justifying any terrorist act. That's not the point I'm trying to make here. What I'm trying to say is that they believe in something and it fills them with hope. It fills them with the notion that tomorrow will be better, that they will arrive at some place beautiful, some paradise of some sort. But an incel does not have this. An incel is hopeless. An incel thinks that life in the future will be as bad as, if not worse than it is today. It's the opposite of hope. An incel believes that life is a downward spiral. It's a toilet drain. And his life is the turd in that toilet that's spinning away down to God knows where. And so out of this frustration and anger, and especially because he probably grew up thinking that he could aspire to a woman, he could aspire to a family.
I wanted to go ahead and just talk about that terrorist analogy where the terrorist has hope. I'm pretty sure you've heard where an Islamic terrorist believes that once he dies, he's going to have 1,000 virgins waiting for him in heaven. And, but incels don't have that hope where they say, oh, things are going to get better. But, this whole cult of, which is exactly what somebody like that would be, like this terrorist, right, that has this belief, especially religious terrorists. And, there's also Christian terrorists as well. But what I want to say, guys, is that, yeah, these terrorists have this hope that things are going to get better, and incels don't. But, like I mentioned before, I used to be part of a cult. And, yeah, those beliefs are really, really, really held down. Because these terrorists are cultists, too.
To children of his own, to most important of all, the possibility of expressing the love in his heart to somebody else. Because self-love, a selfish love is a bitter, ugly kind of love. Most human beings are filled with love and they want to give it to somebody else. And an involuntary celibate has no one to give it to. And that's the thing that makes that love in his heart turn bitter. It turns bitter like wine turning into vinegar. And he wants to give this love to somebody who will reciprocate, who will receive his love and give it in return. This is at once a very modest desire, but in the contemporary culture that we're living in, it's an impossible desire. Because the way things have been organized and the priorities and incentives
and these incels, right, that want to give that love and want to give to other people, it's there, they want to give they're all to mate and build families, and there's nothing ever wrong with that. That is a natural desire that all human beings have. And like he's saying, just be the fact that they aren't able to, and or it's been really rough, it's made them, probably I'd say maybe jaded up to a point, many times. Or I think especially like the doomer, right? He's become jaded. He just doesn't feel pain anymore. But some incels, before they get to that jaded part, they feel a lot of bitterness and resentment of how unequal things have been.
We've given to both men and women, well, it incentivizes women to pursue men who might not actually be the best for them. But it encourages them to pursue men based on certain characteristics that are relatively trivial in the long run. Looks, money, social adroitness. And these involuntary celibates, they don't have these things. Maybe they're not particularly attractive, and maybe they're not particularly socially adroit. But they have other qualities that are much, much more important. Personal decency, hard work, consistency. Those are real qualities, but unfortunately the society that we're living in does not encourage girls, women to look for those qualities. No. It encourages them to look for the shiny packaging. It encourages them to look for, the 3 6s, 6 feet tall, 6-pack abs, and 6-inch dick, which is really disgusting. But that's the world we live in. If I were talking to an incel, if I were talking to you and you are an incel, well, I would tell you that unfortunately this is the world we live in, and you have to make do. You have to make.
You guys, I just want to go ahead and mention that, women have been told to, especially with social media, not necessarily. It's one of those unwritten things that necessarily aren't that women are told. Of course, no woman in their right mind is going to tell their daughter, yep, go after that guy, the guy that has, the $600 horsepower supercar that makes $100,000 a year, that has 6-pack abs, with crappy character. No woman in their right mind is going to tell their daughter, right? That, of course. But what happens is that social media, right? The social media, it's just like music, right? Where music is very influential, where it could, brainwash people. And I think Instagram and all these social media stuff that's out there, it influences women to make them believe things that are just flat out dumb.
Do with what we have. And that would mean you have to adapt. I always encourage guys to learn game. Why do I encourage it?
Before he goes into game, I also wanted to mention, guys, he mentions a very, very interesting point where, there's other things that incels have a value, that are going to be bigger than just game or social skills. Hard work, being a moral person. You guys, those are always going to be more important than, wooing women and having money. Having integrity and being a good moral person. Those are more important characteristics. And, I think it's kind of dumb for a woman to, not want to choose a man that's going to be a good man, but they don't want to choose him because, they have social skills that are just not up to their liking. Man, I think that's kind of dumb, right? I mean, sure, do I support women choosing whatever mate it is, but if I were giving advice to my daughter, which I don't have a daughter, guys, but I would say, hey, always choose a moral person over money, over looks, over how they make you feel, because feelings are very important to women. Let's keep that in mind.
Well, because when I was growing up, I learned certain tricks, certain tactics, certain strategies to get women into bed. Now, this is in the 80s, right? 80s, early 90s. As I was growing up, I developed a whole little panoply of little tactics and little stratagems that I would apply. And when I read about game in the 2010s, like I think it was 2011, 2012. That's when I heard about it for the first time and started paying attention to it and reading about it. And I was shocked to discover that so many of the things that I did consistently were in game. And I thought to myself, holy shit, you know, I mean, yeah, I called it one thing, you know, like I remember the specific.
You know, and it's funny because during that time, late 80s, early 90s, there was no, you know, I can remember the 90s, there was no stinking Instagram and all this baloney, guys, where, you know, as a matter of fact, I'd say, you know, there was tons of good women back then as well. I mean, as there's good women now too, but you know, there wasn't that problem with social media where, you know, of course, you always had these magazines where they had these beautiful models and women would look to them and they'd feel insecure about their looks. Yeah, those things happened back then too, but it wasn't as bad as it is right now. Anyway, let's continue.
Like in game, they call it negging, and I would call it good puppy, but it's basically the same thing. Basically, a gentle condescension to women to get them attracted in you, and it worked like a charm. I knew it worked like a charm because I did it for 30 odd years before I read anything about fucking game, right? And that's why I encourage guys to learn game, because game is true, and that's why I encourage incels to learn game, because it's your only hope. Yeah, because you got to work with what you got. And the current society favors men who learn game. They get girls. They get girls and they get them not only into bed, but into their lives. Yeah, and you got to learn that shit. Yeah. And you are not naturally adroit socially. You are not naturally good looking. Well, if you're not very good looking, you got to do everything you can to improve yourself. What do girls do? Girls, you know, the not so pretty ones, the plain ones, right? They wear makeup. They take care of their hair. And with makeup and good clothes and good hair, they can turn themselves from maybe a 4 into a solid 6. You see what I'm saying? Guys, the same thing. Yeah, you got greasy face with acne, you know, your hair is like a mess and sort of greasy. Well, you go down to, you know, the expensive barber. Get your hair sorted out. Buy the stupid skin creams and shit like that. And use them. And go and get yourself nice clothes. So that at least the packaging is more attractive. You gotta work at it.
Yeah, exactly, right? I mean, sure, work out, have, you know, try to get an attractive hairstyle, wear clothes that make you look good, you know, and etc., right? He says the packaging, you know, the outward appearance, they're not going to make it look perfect, right? I mean, you don't have to be super muscular and have a six-pack to attract women. I mean, as a matter of fact, there's some that aren't attracted to that. I mean, how much videos are there out there of where they go out in public and they have all these guys, right, different body types, and some women don't want a guy who has a six-pack because it either makes them self-conscious, or they're, you know, or they see the guy as somebody who takes as much care of themselves as much as a woman, and that's kind of a feminine trait. You know, does that mean you're feminine if you have a six-pack? No, but it shows that you spend a lot more time than you should at the gym, and that's kind of what some women get. But anyway, let's continue.
Everything worthwhile in life, you got to work at it. I think that what happens with so many incels, and this is just an opinion from the outside, but thinking to myself when I was very young and I was very unsuccessful with girls, I think that the problem is that a lot of incels are kind of like repulsed by the notion of having to change themselves in order to attract women. They think that it should be a natural thing, that just by being themselves, they should get girls. Unfortunately, that's not the case. That's not the case. Because you see, no human being has psychic powers. Yeah. No human being can simply just stare at you and beam their psychic powers into your skull and start looking around your head and see what a lovely person you are on the inside. Such power does not exist. Yeah? And since such power does not exist, you have to somehow show what you have inside you by way of your packaging. And I think that this is fundamentally the thing that drives incels a little bit nuts, that they have to subordinate who they are internally and somehow try to project an attractive packaging. And especially when they feel insecure about the packaging because they don't think that they're very attractive, or they don't think that they're very good at talking to people. They feel very insecure about these things, and it drives them to feel anger that this is what's necessary in order to succeed, in order to get companionship. But unfortunately, brother, you're gonna have to do it. That's the only way. There's nothing wrong with being an incel. There's nothing wrong with it. It's an unfortunate byproduct of our current society. There's nothing wrong with being an incel, but there is something wrong with not making your best effort to break out of these shackles of involuntary celibacy. See, it's all good and fine to say, yes, I'm an incel. But that can't be the end of the sentence. It has to be, yes, I'm an incel, but I am working on it. I am working very diligently to break out of these shackles. And you know, the terrible thing...
Bingo, he nailed it, guys. Yes, I'm an incel right now. But I'm going to do everything I can. I'm going to try to do everything I can to better myself. Not stay there and say, oh, it's over. That's it. I'm an incel. Might as well accept it. And that's where I disagree with incels, where you want to stay there. You don't even want to try. You don't want to do jack. And that's where I disagree with incels. You know, and Gonzalo here is saying, no, you got to work at it. You got to keep trying. You got to get better at it.
The terrible thing that I can tell you from experience, because like I said, when I was young, I was an incel, right? The terrible thing is that, see, it's like a quantum leap, you know? You try to get good at girls. You try to attract women. You try to make them think that you're all that and more, right? And you fail. You fail consistently. You fail and you fail and you fail. And then all of a sudden, you're going to hit this like almost. And then it's going to happen again, like you're almost with the girl. And then it's going to be again and again. And all of a sudden, it'll happen. It'll click. It's like a quantum leap. Yeah, you'll go from here, and then all of a sudden, there. You're there. And you'll cease being an involuntary celibate. And it's all those tiny...
There we go. That's it. And eventually you're going to try, you're going to try, you're going to try. You're almost going to get there, but not quite. Then you're almost going to get even closer, but not there yet. But then all of a sudden, boom, you made it. But you got to get through the failures before you get there.
Little things that you do to improve your situation. Your clothes, your skin, your hair. Getting good at chit-chat. Getting good at interacting verbally with women, which is so fucking important. Yeah. With men, it's not important. On the contrary, sometimes, you know, with men, you know, it works better when we don't talk that much. But with women, yeah, you gotta do that whole verbal shit. And you gotta get good at it. And that requires practice. And it's all these little things that when you add them all up, you get to that next level.
Yeah, exactly. You know, women, you know, are attracted by what they hear. You know, how much times have you heard, you know, women be picked up by some pickup lines? Well, not necessarily pickup lines, but certain things that are like, oh, or it just, you know, because women are going to be more attracted by what they hear. Like I've mentioned, you know, there's ugly guys out there, and you're like, oh, because they get a lot of money. Because those guys learned how to talk to women. Not, you know, they're probably thinking, yeah, I'm ugly and it's hopeless. So what? I'm already ugly and there's nothing I can do about it. The only thing that could happen is for me to, things can't get any worse now that I'm ugly. So let's go ahead and keep trying. That's what a lot of ugly guys think. Like, I'm already ugly, so it can't get any worse. I can only go up from here. But anyway.
But you have to do it. You have to work at it. You can't simply stew in your frustration. And I think that that's what bothers me the most about so many incels. They stew in their frustration. And I think that that's what has so many people worried about incels. They stew in their frustration. When somebody, anyone, you, me, anyone, when we just stew in our frustration and just grind on it and think about it all the time, it just dominates our attention. We start getting obsessive. We start getting crazy. Let's face facts. We start getting seriously crazy. we start saying things and potentially doing things that are crazy, that are very, very, very bad for anyone unlucky enough to be around a man who is stewing on something that he cannot break out of. That's why so many people are shitting on incels. It's out of fear and a sense that potentially these men who are the losers in this deregulated sexual marketplace.
Exactly, you're just stewing in your frustration and it's going to become anger. You know, like I had this Yoda video, I can't remember exactly, but, you know, anger leads into hate, you know, and, you know, you're going to be suffering and you're going to be in all this pain, and you're like, oh, I don't want to be in this pain anymore. And a lot of them do some horrible, horrible things, you know, where after they do the horrible things, they take their own lives, and which is just awful, right? I mean, if you know, they could have turned their life around. They could have just been a bad moment that they're in, which one day your bad moments are going to end, you know. You know, there's this Mexican saying, no hay mil años que pase por uno y no hay un idiota que los aguante tampoco. You know, of course, roughly, you know, there is, you know, you can't go through 1,000 years of bad luck initially, roughly translated, and there's no idiot that's going to put up with it either. So I'm not saying, you know, oh yeah, you know, that means, you know, that you're going to put an end to it. And no, what I'm saying is, when you're going to put in the idiot that's going to want to put in, that's not going to want to deal with it, you know, eventually you're going to fed up and you're going to say, hey, I want to change my situation. Not the bad one where you're going to, you know, hurt other people and then yourself.
Well, these men will one day explode. Not all of them, of course, but some of them. And some of them already have. It's fear that this explosion will happen. It's also guilt. Guilt knowing that the system that we currently have is extraordinarily unfair. It's great for the guys at the top. It's great for them. Oh yeah, they get all the pussy. I mean, they're knee deep in pussy, right? And it's great for women too, because they don't have any sexual constraints. They can go and fuck whomever they want, like rabbits, right? And so it's great for them, and they enjoy it, sure, because, you know, both sexes enjoy sex. Yeah, if they didn't, we wouldn't have a species, for crying out loud, right? Yeah. Both sexes enjoy sex, and it's great for the vast majority of women, and it's terrific for the top 20% of men. For the 21 percentile to the 70 percentile, more or less, it's a goddamn struggle. And for the bottom 30%, there's no hope. And I think it's guilt that makes so many people afraid of that bottom 30% of the incels. Maybe you're an incel. Everybody's afraid of you because they fear that you're going to explode, because they fundamentally realize how unfair this situation really is. So you're an incel, right? So what do? Very simple. Like I said before, you have to improve yourself. All the little things to get better. And you're an incel, well, you're not going to have the luxury of choice. A lot of guys who are higher up on the sexual totem pole are going to have the luxury of choice. You have to realize that you are not going to have that luxury. Yet at the same time, you don't want to attach yourself to a disaster of a woman. Right? So you have to think to yourself in the following manner. You have to say to yourself, I am an incel. I'm going to do everything possible to get a woman. I'm going to fix myself up, fix my superficial aspects, fix my language, and be able to talk to women to convince them to be with me. But yet at the same time, I will make a pact with myself that I will not shortchange myself. If I pair up with a woman, it's going to be with a woman who maybe she's not the prettiest. She's not the most attractive. Maybe she's a little bit fat and plain. I'll attach myself to her. But I'm going to be intransigent insofar as some key limits, some key issues. And most important of all, she has to be stable and decent. And that's what you have to do. That's how you have to think.
All right, excellent point, guys. See, why do you think he's saying, when you get there, you have to choose carefully which woman you're gonna choose, because if you put in the work, you will be successful, no doubt about it. But when you get there, keep in mind, you guys, I'm telling you, because there's guys out there that have a low self-esteem, and they think, well, the fact that I got a woman, even though she's terrible, even though she's mean to me, disrespectful, doesn't do anything for me, and she's just, a mess, and she's definitely, whatever, right? You fill in the blank, whatever all the bad stuff is doing, but I can't leave it because it's, they're in that state where it's better to be in a bad relationship than be single, which is a massive mistake.
You have to think to yourself that you're going to have very few opportunities.
I also wanted to mention, guys, where he said, yeah, she's not going to look that great. I mean, she's probably going to be packing some pounds. Maybe she's not that good looking, but, what about her moral character, right? That's what eventually comes down. That's what I wanted to also add.
I wish I could be, more hopeful. But if you're an incel, it's going to be a long goddamn struggle. Simple as that. It's going to be a very, very tough struggle, and I'll tell you something that most people are not going to tell you, which is the odds against you are very high. If you're an incel, if you're a man who's 25, 30, and you have never been with someone, let alone if you're 35, 40, the odds are stacked against you. You're going to have to work extremely hard. But more likely than not, you're a very, very smart guy. Most incels I've seen are very smart. The dumb ones can fall into pussy relatively easily. It's the smart ones who overthink it and they fuck themselves up.
He was about to make a pretty good point. But anyway, what I want to say, guys, is that, the thing is that all this, what, I'm so sorry, I lost my train of thought, guys. My mistake.
Well, since you're a smart guy, use that intelligence to your advantage. Recognize what I'm telling you. Don't allow yourself to stew in your anger and frustration. It serves no purpose. If you're frustrated and angry and upset about the situation, then you have to find a way to express that anger in a harmless way. Devote yourself to some hobby, some pastime, some sport, whatever. But don't allow yourself to stew in your anger, because it will hurt no one but yourself. At the same time, you have to realize that the odds are against you, and it's grossly unfair.
Oh, just that thought came back to mind, guys. Okay, so that's what he's saying. Yeah, that you're at a disadvantage, right? It's kind of like the kids at school, guys. That they were in special ed. I don't know what they call it. That struggle. They didn't know how to read as well. They struggled in school a little bit because whatever the reason might be. That they barely passed high school, and you guys, those kids had to work just as hard, even harder than the kids who got good grades, because they were at a disadvantage, or they were probably dyslexic. They probably, whatever it was, right? That they had to struggle. They had to struggle even harder. And incels are the same thing, they struggled with women, and they're going to probably struggle a little bit harder than your average bear, right? But you guys, eventually you're going to be successful, right? Just like those kids, I'll tell you, those kids that I knew, guys, that struggled harder than the kids that got good grades, they graduated high school on time.
But unfortunately, life has never been fair.
I also want to mention about venting your frustrations, all that frustration that you feel, venting it in a healthy way, guys. Is it the gym? Is it therapy? Is it playing video games? Whatever it might be, but just release it in a healthy way. Where life is beautiful, guys, but it's not worth saying, "Oh, I don't want to be here anymore," and you know, leave the show. No, that's just not right, guys. I mean, you got to do something, because eventually, like I said about that saying, there isn't bad luck that lasts 1,000 years. I mean, eventually things are gonna get better.
The unfairness of life, it's like musical chairs, okay? It's like a spinning wheel, yeah? It's unfair to different people in different generations. And in this generation that we're living in this time period that we're living in, you who are not that attractive, not that socially adroit, you're the one who's going to lose out. And maybe in the next cycle, in the next century or millennia, guys like you will be the winners. Who knows? But that's a pipe dream. You have to work with what you got. God, this is a downer video, and I'm sorry, but I hope this helps.
Okay, you guys, it's not that he's trying to be a downer, but he's trying to help. He's saying, yep, the odds are stacked against you. It's gonna be a rough ride. It's gonna be tough, but you gotta do these things to get where you want to be. And he's telling you, yeah, things aren't going right now, but let's do this. Let's fix the outward guy. Let's, have him have a good haircut. Have him get in better shape. Have him take care of his skin. Have him have, good looking clothes that, suit him well. Once we get that, let's go ahead and start talking to people. Let's start talking to girls out there, women, and start getting better at it. You're going to come close, but not close enough. Next time you're going to fail again, but you're going to be even closer than the last time. And one day, boom, what do you know? You're there. And that's how it is, guys. You're going to go through failure after failure after failure before you get to the right spot. But, there's some work that has to be done. Let's go ahead and get to work, guys. That's what I want to say. And I'll see you in the next video.